Holy City Center Radio, episode 50, the Big 5-0. We made it. I'm your host, Christian Sanger. Thank you for joining me for another week. Today's guest is Rich Tavetian. He is host of the Rich Life podcast, a show about self-development, and it's also for entrepreneurs. So it's kind of a nice mix for whatever your reason for listening. And that's not all. He has his hands in all sorts of projects. Really interesting guy, super nice dude as well. We've spoken mostly through, like DMs and emails and stuff. He's written a couple like guest posts for me over the last few years, and they're always well received. He always does a really good job with it. And we finally connected sort of in person. We did I was a guest on his podcast, which was recorded over like a Zoom type program. It may even been Zoom. I don't remember. But so it was my first time being able to see him face to face. And yeah, we got to do a good show. It's out there if you want to go listen to it or watch it on YouTube. And excited to have him on this show to talk about himself and some of the things he, like I said, he's got his hands in a lot of different stuff. So it'll be pretty interesting. Be sure to stick around for that. But first, we got to talk about the latest stories as well as some updates from my personal life. So we had a couple weeks off. We took a week off because I had a pretty big week last week. Just some stuff at work and, of course, the site, but also, getting out of the house and doing some things. One day I was interviewed by Dean Stevens, the former anchor at ABC News 4, longtime anchor here in the Charleston area for that station. He recently retired from that industry and is now working with a nonprofit downtown called Ripple, which is basically a co-working space for nonprofits. And while he's overseeing that and doing work there, he also does a podcast called Say Your Story. And he was nice enough to invite me on. We recorded that. By the time this episode comes out, my episode with Dean will already be out there. So you can go find that anywhere you find podcasts called Say Your Story. It was great having a nice chat with him. I've done several interviews over the years, and a lot of them are kind of the same, at least the first few questions. They're usually like, how did you get started with the site, and, where'd the name come from and stuff like that, which totally makes sense, for people who are unfamiliar with Holy City Center and what I've done. And then they kind of follow the same sort of questions from there. But Dean does a great job of asking things and bringing up topics that I don't get asked about a lot. So it's really good. We talked about, mental health and being vocal about that and, trying to help out nonprofits. And it was a really good conversation. So I definitely recommend you all checking that out. In addition, I got to some concerts. It was a busy, hippy-dippy week for me because I went to see both Fish and the Dave Matthews Band. Fish was a last-minute decision. I'm not a huge fan, not that I dislike them. I just only maybe know 5 songs by them. I know more as far as the titles, but I couldn't tell you anything about the songs, what they sound like, what the lyrics are like. But yeah, there's probably about 5 songs where I know a little bit. And I've saw them only one other time before. It was 10 years ago. I said, what the hell? There's some tickets available. I'll just go by myself. And so that's what I did. I went. It was at Credit One Stadium, the tennis stadium on Daniel Island. I didn't stay for the whole show. I'd work the next day, and it was just, I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to do something, and it was fun. The crowds at Fish are always a lot of fun because not only are they all, for the most part, just like happy to be there. Everyone's in a good mood. You go to some shows and people are rude and, are way too drunk or whatever and starting fights and all that, but not at Fish. Everyone's like love and happiness. And, for those who haven't been to a show, they're similar in a sense to if you've ever heard of how Rocky Horror Picture Show still plays in theaters periodically, and there's like a whole audience participation thing. They're throwing things around the theater and shouting out certain words at certain parts of the movie. It's kind of like Fish concerts are like, the fans are shouting out things at particular moments and songs, and they're throwing glow sticks and balloons and beach balls, and they have like a whole culture, and it's just fun to watch. Anytime I'm like, I'm not really feeling this song, or they're jamming out for a really long time, I don't really want to look at the band anymore. I can only watch them play their instruments for so long. You can just look out at the crowd and just see the fun, and so it was nice. It was just nice to see that, and I've been to many concerts over my life. And I've seen plenty of drunken high people at all these concerts, but Fish high people are a completely different animal because they're that like when you think of like Woodstock High, like that old school, just like hands kind of like waving through the air. They're just like spinning around, just feeling the groove, man. There was a lot of that. People head to toe tie dye wearing a cape, spinning around in circles was probably my favorite guy. So, it's a whole to do the whole setup, but it was a lot of fun. Dave Matthews Band is a whole different scenario for me. I am a huge fan, which either makes people scoff and disgust or agree with me because they also love the band. They're very polarizing, and I've known that since I've been listening to them since I think I was 11 years old. And so I was able to see them on Friday and Saturday night at the same stadium, had a blast. Didn't realize how much I needed it. I hadn't seen the band in a couple years, and that was kind of my annual summer tradition, was seeing this band, especially when I was younger, going with friends from high school and college, and kept it up and haven't missed too many summers. But because of the pandemic and whatnot, I hadn't seen a full band play since 2018, so it'd been a long time, and had a lot of fun. Weather was great. It did downpour about 10 minutes after the show ended on Friday. So like poor everyone, including myself, was just getting out of the stadium and just downpour, soaking wet. But you know what? Zero complaints. It was just a lot of fun. Again, great crowd. Everyone seemed to be in a good mood and just enjoying being out. Music was good. The sound was good. People seemed to like the stadium and all the improvements. And it was great. And I put up an Instagram post. Actually, well, it was on my personal page, so a lot of y'all didn't see it. But I put up a post, with a picture of the show, and just thinking how wild it's been that I've been seeing this band play live for 24 years. I went to my first DMB show in 1998 when I was just a wee little lad in high school, and I've been, then I just saw them in 2022. So there's not many bands, no matter how much you love a band, that lasts that long. I'm sure there's bands that people listening you liked when you were a kid, you still like as an adult, but maybe they've broken up. Maybe, lead singer has passed or, whatever. And so it's pretty incredible that for 24 years I've been seeing this band play live, and they've been such a big part of my life for different reasons. So it was nice. It was something I didn't realize how much I needed it until after. Was very tired by Sunday because I'm an old man, and back-to-back nights of a concert. Plus I also went to fish one night earlier in the week. I can't hang anymore, but it was a blast. So sorry for rambling about my favorite band, but it was a pretty great weekend, and I was happy to see that. All right, from there we're gonna I think that pretty much covers it for what's going on here. I guess we'll just dive right into some of the news now. So first up, bombshell report from the Post and Courier. I first saw it on Sunday. It may have come out, Saturday night, but a pretty big story that I don't think has been getting a lot of play around town. But a longtime employee of the city of North Charleston has accused North Charleston Mayor Keith Summey of abuse of power and inappropriate sexual conduct. So yes, this first appeared in the Post and Courier. That's where most of this information is coming from. However, today, which is Monday, June 6th, when we're recording this a little earlier than normal, the News 2, the local NBC affiliate, also had some reporting on this, but the majority of this is coming from the Post and Courier article. So Summey was accused of engaging in, quote, chronic intimidation against this longtime city employee. He also allegedly, as I mentioned, made sexual advances. This occurred in the early 2000s, and this information is coming from interviews with the woman who made the accusations. She also has filed new job retaliation complaints against the mayor because she feels she was recently moved to a new project, which she saw as a demotion because of her raising concerns and going against his advances. The mayor, for his part, has denied all these accusations, and we'll get into that a little bit. There's a lot in this article. It is a long article. You could tell that the reporters did a lot of research, talked to a lot of people, and it details not only this woman's allegations, but some other things that I didn't know about, but apparently they could have been found out there in public. So let's go through it. So going back to the original allegations, one of the most damning ones, as far as if this is true, this is pretty bad. One day, Mayor Summey allegedly cornered her in a storage room and began making sexual advances. The woman described it as this really was the start of a darker relationship between the two. She said she felt disoriented in this moment, especially as he started groping her in the cramped closet. And her quote that I thought was, pretty terrifying and sad. She said, quote, "He knew I couldn't physically get past him," end quote. So basically saying, there's this bigger guy. He's cornered me in a closet. Like, what am I supposed to do? So that was really sad to read that quote and to think about someone being in that position. When asked about that particular allegation, Summy told the Post and Courier, quote, "First of all, there was no storage place in the building, so that did not happen," end quote. And I love when journalists do this next little bit. So after they present an allegation, the allegation is denied, and Summy says there was no storage place in that building. And then just matter-of-factly, it says, "The Post and Courier obtained a photo of the closet the woman described." So they immediately, just matter-of-factly, because they're journalists, like, Summy said there's no such place in this building. Well, we found a photo of it. So it appears he's lying about, well, I should be clear. It doesn't look good. He could be lying about the allegation because his only denial was, well, there's no storage place like that, so obviously it didn't happen. Didn't deny the act itself. Now, granted, he did later on, but never good when you are using that as your reasoning for why this person is lying. But yes, despite the whole being wrong about the closet thing, the mayor did deny that any sexual advances or any type of sexual relationship, consensual or otherwise, took place. So there's that portion of it. And then you can go read the article. There's more allegations about like intimidation and just like, for me, the sexual assault stuff jumps out more so than like this intimidation and, moving her to different projects and just kind of, there's other allegations of like not being a very good boss. Like, okay, that might point to a bigger picture. And I definitely recommend you read it, but I'm not going to go into all of those allegations here. So I think that last one is more important and more damning. In addition to those allegations, so as the Post and Courier went through and was doing some reporting and Freedom of Information Acts and all that kind of stuff, they found out that in the late 1990s, 2 other female staffers actually sued Mayor Summy and the city of North Charleston, alleging he made inappropriate sexual advances towards them and other women. The city settled that case for $150,000. Summy, despite the settlement, denied those allegations as well. Also in the piece, about 12 years ago, Mayor Summy met with Ray Anderson and Julie Elmore, who were 2 top city staffers. They met in the mayor's office. It was Anderson's birthday. And for whatever reason, in a city office, someone decided it would be a good idea to have a stripper come into the office unannounced, so to surprise Anderson and perform. Summy admitted that one is true. So he denied all this other stuff, but did admit that they did bring a stripper into city offices one day. The allegation was brought up by the same woman that has been the feature of this piece. She said it was really uncomfortable, and she just left, when the woman started taking off her clothes and it was clear what was going on. She also claimed Anderson, whose birthday it was mortified. And so just horrible judgment and just wild that this is something that they readily admitted to happening in a piece about sexual assault and unwanted sexual advances and all this kind of stuff. So like, all right, well, yeah, that one's true. Like, just wild that's in this piece. The whole thing is horrible, but just it's really this. There's so many allegations that part was kind of far down in the piece. Like, yikes. So that's, like I said, go read it. Summy has denied everything except the stripper allegation. He did say that was poor judgment. It will never happen again. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. The rest he's denying, as I mentioned. So it'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out as we go forward. But I thought that was a really big story. I shared it, and I just felt like there wasn't a ton of people responding to it or sharing it. So I'm not sure why that is. Maybe because it came out on a Sunday. But I highly recommend you go check out that piece. The other big story since the last time we had a show, by the time this comes out, I know a lot of time will have passed, but I still think it's important to talk about, and there will probably be several updates. But over Memorial Day weekend, there was a mass shooting in Charleston. Shockingly, did not seem to make much of a dent, kind of like the Key Summy story. I don't know if people just have bad news fatigue or mass shooting fatigue, which sounds awful to say, but we're just so used to it. And the fact that the mass shooting, thankfully, no one died. And again, there are still people in the hospital. Hopefully they're recovering and will be fine, but obviously that could change. But as of this recording, no one has died. So maybe that's part of it. People, and it's coming off the heels of that elementary school shooting, which we talked about in the last episode. So I don't know, but it just didn't seem like it got the same level of interest or people talking as it did. But obviously, shocking to learn that 10 people were shot in downtown Charleston in a single incident. So this was back on May 30th. Again, during the holiday weekend, 10 people were shot downtown Charleston. Charleston Police Chief Luther Reynolds said the incident began when a Charleston police officer responded to a complaint about a loud party that was happening at a vacant lot around the 40 block of South Street. It came out later that apparently there's been other parties or hangouts happening on what's a vacant lot. And so the police were responding to a complaint, loud parties happening. And when they arrived, according to Reynolds, immediately the officer took gunfire. He said this on the day after at a news conference. 2 shots went into his cruiser. And then he also said, quote, "Let me tell you something. As we stand here right now, we're lucky we don't have a dead cop or dead citizens," end quote. So that's how it all started. An officer shows up. Officer gets shot at immediately upon arriving. And in total, there's been some iffy numbers. They're still investigating, but Reynolds said at that press conference that 50 shells or something like that were recovered. So that's a lot of shots, different types of weapons. He mentioned based on what they saw, everything from what they call a long gun, like a rifle type gun, to a handgun. And yeah, when it was all said and done, 10 people were injured. They're still investigating, going to try to make arrests. Among the victims, one was 17. It was the only victim who was under the age of 18. Another victim is a pregnant woman. Runs the gamut from young to a little bit older. They didn't have all the details at this press conference. Like I said, more will probably come out. They did provide little pieces like that. So, just what must have been a frightening and scary scene. There's one video that a couple of the news outlets had posted. It came from one of those Ring cameras of someone's house in that neighborhood. You can see people just kind of walking around the street, coming or going from the lot. I can't tell which direction. And then all of a sudden you see people just starting to scatter. Obviously, that's when the gunfire started. So, again, details outside of that are still a little sketchy at this point. They're at the press conference, Mayor John Tecklenburg was talking about how, obviously, just like we've all been talking about, gun problem in this country, violence problem in this country. And as he said, on his level, where he is as the mayor, there's not really much they can do in terms of gun control and things like that, but was hopeful that the state, may try to pass some things, to help keep track of anybody who's been arrested for gun violence or gun-related incidents and have a better database for these things. And you could tell he probably wanted some more things, but his hands are tied. He also lives in South Carolina, which, as I'm sure many of you know, has one of the most lax gun laws in the country, which is why we also have some of the highest rates of gun violence in this country. It's weird how that happens, how gun control does work. We just don't want to admit it. But anyway, this could have been so much worse, so much worse, and we're lucky it wasn't. It was disappointing to me that there wasn't this outrage. Now, don't get me wrong. The people in that community, which, is a part of the east side of Charleston, they said to the police chief and the mayor, hey, we've been having problems. We've reported these things. We need help. We need the help of the city to stop these things. And they're worried about their safety, and rightfully so. And I'm just curious why it just seemed like it didn't make a bigger... Nationally, I get it, but here in Charleston, I don't understand why it just seemed to me it didn't make that. Even though every news outlet was covering it, I didn't see a lot of people sharing it. I didn't see a lot of people talking about it, and I'm just curious as to why that is. And I don't know. I can speculate, like I said, about just fatigue from the news and the fact that no one died, so it doesn't seem as dire to people. And unfortunately, I also know what part of the reason is, and that is based on some of the comments I've seen. I know. Don't read the comment section. But some of the comments I saw, like, Live 5 and ABC News and News 2 and Post and Courier, all sharing the story on their like Facebook pages, and seeing comments that are at best ignorant and at worst outright racist, as the East Side has predominantly been and historically been a section of the city that most of the residents are black. And so a lot of the comments were either veiled or outright racist about, it must have been a drug deal gone wrong, even though, number one, it clearly was talking about a party and, it was about it. It's wrong, obviously. Or two, like, oh, yeah, what do you expect in that part of town? Stuff like that, comments like that. And I'm wondering if that's part of it, too. Obviously, that's the worst, the people who make those comments out loud. But if you're one of the people who saw the story and had that thought in your head, or thought, doesn't apply to me, I'm in a different section of the city, I'm okay, I mean, that's just as bad. If we're not trying to stop gun violence in all communities, we're not going to be able to stop it in any. And I know that's a partial reason why it didn't get as much airtime or play as far as people sharing it and stuff. And I know that there's a lot of good people and that's not what's going on. But for whatever reason, it just didn't seem like a big deal. And the gun violence has continued. I hate to put it this way, but like one-offs, like a single shooting, an argument between two people, not just in Charleston, but throughout the state, a graduation party. Last week, again, we're recording this on June 6th, so it'll be a while. There was several people shot at a graduation party in the Midlands, and one person died, and it just continues. And then was more mass shootings, one at a hospital. I'm already forgetting what state it was in because there's so many mass shootings, and there was a tie to that hospital, Tulsa, Oklahoma. A woman who died was a doctor or medical staff. I forget her title, and I apologize. But she had ties to South Carolina. She used to live here, and her ex-husband was talking to the Post and Courier about her. So we have ties to these things, and they just keep happening everywhere in this country. So we'll see what happens as far as legislation and things. But that was a huge story, I thought, and it just didn't seem like people were really necessarily talking about it. And I just was curious as to why that was. As far as follow-up since the press conference, the city of Charleston and the Charleston Police Department confirmed that they are issuing a court summons to the owners of the property where the shooting took place. Police Inspector Michael Galuli said members of the Charleston Department of Livability and Tourism issued the summons for, quote, public nuisance, end quote, to the owners of a South Street property near America Street, which we just talked about. So that's where we're at so far. It's still being investigated. There still will likely be arrests, and I guess they're trying to hold the property owners accountable. We'll see if they even knew this was happening on their property. It'll be interesting to see what they have to say about all this. But so far, the people who own the property are being held accountable, and we don't have any real other notable arrests at this time. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully, next time we recap stories, we won't be talking about gun violence, but unfortunately, I think we might be. So that's what's been going on here in town. Because we're recording this a little earlier, like I said, a lot can change in all these stories, and there could be some big stories that happen between now and when the episode comes out. We'll be sure to cover them in the next episode. We've got some great guests coming up, so be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. But first, why wait for a great interview when we have one right now as well? So we're going to dive into that interview. As I mentioned, my guest for episode number 50, which is still blowing my mind, Rich Tavetian is host of the Rich Life podcast. Wait till you hear it. This dude's got so much energy. He's got such a positive attitude, and he's got his hands in a whole lot of different things. And most of it, even if it's a business, it's all revolving around helping people and making life easier. And it's really, like I told him at the end of the interview, it's pretty inspiring to have someone with that kind of attitude and energy and just positive outlook on life and wanting to help people out. So here it is now, without any further delay, my interview with Rich Tavetian. Joining me now is my guest, Rich Tavetian. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rich. I'm excited to chat with you.
Christian, what's up, brother?
Not too much. always bringing the energy, always bringing the positive attitude. And so I think people exactly. And I think people will understand, why you are that way and how you bring this energy to all the stuff you do, as we chat here. I mentioned everyone I was on your podcast, the Rich Life podcast, which is a show about self-development, but also, kind of geared towards entrepreneurs, although you don't have to be one to listen to it. And I appreciated you inviting me on and happy I could finally get you on my podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I had such a blast that day too. Like, yeah. I don't think you realize it, but I had such a good time.
Well, I appreciate just talking about it. It was good too, because, you asked a lot of the questions that, about the website and everything, but then we also started talking about anxiety and some other things. So yes. I think it was a good topic or a good conversation overall. So, first, people already are hearing that you're a positive guy and you're bringing the energy, but who are you? What is your background? Let people know a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and, what brought you to Charleston.
So this will take an hour. No, I'm just kidding. So what's up, everybody listening? My name is Rich Tavetian. It's kind of an interesting last name. It's sort of like Kardashian. You might have heard of them. I don't know. So my background is I'm Armenian and Colombian. If you wanted to know my background, that's what my last name is, actually Armenian.
Oh, okay.
And so Tavetian, it's to me, it's more of a brand now. Most people can't pronounce it, but it's sort of like you think of it like if you're reading it, it's like a TV hitting your shin. I don't know if I told you that.
You did,
yeah. So I'm from New York. That's probably why I'm talking so fast, but I was born in Queens, New York. I actually grew up in the mountains of New York, which most people don't realize there are mountains in New York.
Right.
And also that's why I don't have a funny sounding accent, from like traditional New Yorkers. So,
yeah, you don't have the Queens or, that kind of accent at all.
Yeah, my dad does. My dad absolutely has. And awesome. Sometimes if I have a little too much alcohol, ratchet Rich comes out, But I've lived in many places, along the East Coast. And in 2015, I moved to Charleston. Just fell in love with the city, haven't looked back. I love this place and I probably won't ever leave for a while. As you mentioned, I am a massive self-development guy. I just love self-development, increasing and improving my life 1% every single day. I am a business owner for several businesses. I tend to do many things because it's what I love to do, is just kind of, be creative and create things and whatnot. Most of my time is really around working out. So you could probably find me either running at one of the parks somewhere in Charleston, training. I tend to do a lot of obstacle course races. So I actually have 3 Spartan races this year that I'm training for.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
Yeah, man. One is done already. So I got 2 more coming up
nice.
Throughout the country here. Like I said, I'm a creator. I like to create things, write, videography, all that fun stuff. This is becoming like a singles profile now.
I was about to say, because we've talked before. Are you still single?
Out there.
Yeah, we could use this as your dating profile for you.
I know, right? Big traveler. I just love travel. I just got back from in early May. I was in Europe for a week. It was amazing.
I was watching your Instagram stories. It looked amazing. It looked like you had an awesome trip.
I got to send you some pictures, man.
Yeah, I saw some of them, but I bet you got all sorts that you weren't sharing because it would have been like 100 photos a day on your stories. But yeah, it looked incredible.
And I also, typically, like most of my time is spent doing those things or also investing in real estate. And, a little bit of background, I actually left my W-2 job in August of last year in 2021. I was primarily working in IT. So after about a decade of working in the field, I was a project manager for software companies. I also worked in finance, but I decided to leave my job because I wanted to pursue the lifestyle that I wanted. And it's just been amazing since then. And I'm just so grateful, for everything and everybody that's in my life, including you, Christian.
Oh, thank you. You said that was 2018 is when you left?
No, 2021.
Oh, 2021. So was this one of those pandemic type related things? Other people were leaving jobs. You're like, you know what? I think I'm going to pull the trigger too, or just it worked out that way?
Well, I had been, you know what, man? I've been planning it pre-COVID.
Okay,
actually.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I, for like I mean, I'm a big fan of like going on like hikes, like long hikes, and just thinking, like using my brain to think, because we have so many distractions in the world now that I don't really get a chance to like use my brain to think. So I have to specifically go on retreats to really, to journal and write about life and where I want to go and where I'm headed and that sort of thing. And I had been journaling about leaving my job for 3 years, believe it or not. And I just wasn't happy where I was. And I just, after years of building my assets and real estate and all that, I decided to pull the trigger, and it was the best decision of my life.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've talked to some other people, whether it's pandemic related or not, who are pursuing whether it's nonprofits or their own business that they're looking for. They all say the same thing. When you're doing something that you love and you're passionate about, you're going to be much happier. And so yes, you decided to do that. You've got your hand in some real estate stuff, but then you have some extra time. Believe it or not, despite you saying all these things that you're doing, you decide to do some other things. And so we've already mentioned one. We'll talk about that first. The Rich Life podcast. What made you decide that you wanted to start a podcast, and what was kind of your goal with the show?
Oh man. So I actually I have over 380 episodes now, which is crazy.
Wow,
and
awesome.
it's mostly me just rambling.
I mean, that's what podcasts are.
So I just remember, I actually, I think I started it in 2017 or 2016? I can't remember exactly, but I decided to do it because I just felt inspired to talk to people and to help people, with the situations that I was in. And then it just sort of morphed into me talking about business and entrepreneurship and marketing and sales and being an entrepreneur, what it means to be that person, because it is a skill set. And then also, like I said, I was a self-development person all my life, and just listening to, my mentors on audio books and things like that, I was just like, let me share what I'm learning, because I feel like if I kind of like take in what I'm learning and then share it to other people, that might benefit other people as well. And it worked out. It worked out really well, because people were giving me some great feedback, like, oh, I love your ramble on this. And I love your, you're talking about, Tony Robbins stuff and, Jim Rohn and, Earl Nightingale, and just like all these things about goal setting and, how New Year's resolutions are garbage. Am I allowed to curse on this, by the way?
Oh yeah, you can. Yep.
Okay. And how New Year's resolutions are bullshit and like, stuff like that, where I'm like, man, I could talk and like actually make a positive impact on people's lives just by rambling and helping people, understand what I'm learning.
That makes a lot of sense, because like you said, you're into these things, you're reading, you're listening to your mentors on audiobooks and stuff, and people don't have time necessarily to research things that they're interested in. Sometimes podcasts are the best way. You find someone who's like a subject matter expert or passionate about something you're passionate about, and you can just listen to them and kind of glean information for them. So it certainly makes sense that people are relating to that. And, even though you're based in Charleston, you have a wide range of guests. It's not just people located in this area, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it's actually a mix right now. It's still a mix of me talking about topics of things that I've learned, along with other people that are in Charleston, or just business people, or maybe they're a marketing person, maybe they're a videographer. It's honestly a little bit all over the place still right now, but at some point I'll probably niche down and get more specific. But yeah, it's just a blast. Like just, interviewing people, asking, like, I'm just a curious person in general, and I love asking questions, especially successful people. So when I can learn a little bit from somebody, then it's just amazing. It's just incredible for me, because then I could take that piece of advice or just whatever story or whatever inspiration I got from that person, and then execute on it, take that action, and then do what I want to do.
And go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, it's been amazing so far.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I hear you. Podcasting, a lot of fun, learning about stuff, talking to people you wouldn't have otherwise. And I was going to say, you're from, I haven't listened to all 300 plus episodes, but of the ones I've listened to, they seem to be, for the most part, kind of evergreen. It's not like a breaking news or a, hey, here's what happened this week. So anybody listening can certainly, subscribe and, listen every day, every week going forward, but they can listen to old episodes, and it's not going to be this like stale content. It still applies.
Yes. And actually that makes, you just made me think about this. The main driver, I just started talking into my phone, right? I was just talking into my phone, and it turned into, like a 3-4 minute me ramble. And then I started realizing, like, why am I doing this? Like, what is the purpose of me doing this, to answer your question earlier? Mm-hmm. And it really came down to me making a positive impact on other people's lives, making humanity better, and also sharing education for children, like for my future children as well, because I don't have kids yet that I know of. So my idea behind it was like, how can I package the stuff that I'm learning that has really skyrocketed my life in many areas, like not just wealth, but also like the health, energy. Obviously, I had a little bit of energy, my health, my wealth, my overall happiness, like little life hacks around happiness, growing my energy, having better relationships with people, having better relationships with family, those types of things, because it's just real world stuff. And so to answer your question, it was just like, how do I package this stuff up, or at least start, organizing it to share with, my future kids, because I want to teach them what I've learned. And to your point of being evergreen, it's like, how could I do this to make it so that it's not related to, a geopolitical event or some type of pandemic or something going on. And so, yeah, that's basically.
Very cool. Yeah, that's great that you're sharing these things that made you happy with other people. It's always nice to bring joy in other people's lives. And, although you do that through the podcast, you do have some other services that bring joy in other ways. So you also have like a video promo service, or, you take videos for people. Can you tell us what that company is, how that works?
Yeah. So it's really, right now it's more of a freelance thing. So okay. I have been, more focused on, videography lately. So I'm taking like different filmmaking courses. Oh, nice. And, when it comes to, I'm realizing video is such a powerful thing nowadays. Like it gets everybody's attention. And so a lot of businesses, I believe, need video in their life. Like they just need it in order to succeed and to grow their business. And again, I'm more on the business side of things right now. So, whether you're like a salon or a spa or, maybe a medical office or whatever it is, I feel like those people are really good technicians, and they're really good at doing their jobs with, their day to day, but they don't really think about like, how do I communicate my awesomeness to other people? How do I communicate my amazing service or product to other people? And so if you're not on social media, you're basically dead is my thought process behind it. So I figured, how could I help businesses? I'm primarily focused on small businesses, especially locally in Charleston. How could I help those small businesses create video that communicates how awesome that business owner is, to get more clients? Right. And so that's what I've been doing lately. And I've been doing a lot of work for other real estate investors lately, and just kind of helping helping them with like their own personal branding on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube Shorts, things like that. So, I mean, I've been a marketing guy for forever. Like I just love marketing and just creating content, writing content, videography. But now I'm going a little bit deeper on video, because I believe video is still very much relevant in 2022.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, number one, you can just see it, because how many times do you get sent or heard about TikToks? People are constantly sharing videos, and same with Instagram. It feels like a lot of times videos will get more traction than just a regular static post of a photo. It does seem that people are kind of going that way, instead of like, oh, look, a nice photo from whatever, they prefer a video. I don't know what it is. Like you said, it just seems it's grabbing people's attention. And so it certainly makes sense. And I've noticed that too. There's a lot of businesses that are super successful. The people behind them do amazing work at what they do, but when it comes to promoting themselves, they just don't know what to do. That's not their skill set. So it makes sense that you're, coming in to do that. And it's cool that you not only are like, hey, this is, a service I want to do, a business, but you're also, making sure that you're, at the top of it by taking courses and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So you're not just kind of, I'll just do this and figure it out. You're kind of doing it and figuring it out while also learning, which is good. But that's
just a quick background on that too. So I used to skateboard as a kid. I was, I was like 15 years old, and I was like a skater boy in high school, right? and I don't know if I could get on a skateboard and do any kick flips or whatever nowadays, but I might break something. But the point is, like, when I would skateboard with my friends, we'd always be like filming, right? We'd always be like doing, and this is before smartphones, right? So I had like an old school, throwback, like kids see it now, they're like, what is that thing?
The huge camera.
Yeah, it was like a huge camera. So I always like resonated with creating stuff. And I was a big like StarCraft fan, like, video games and StarCraft and Halo and all that stuff. So I would always find a way to create something, whether it was creating maps or creating video or just like building something. That's where all of my inspired energy went. And now that I'm doing my own thing, months later, it's just like clear to me, like, this is it. This is where my energy is going. And so that's how the video came into play. Cause I'm like, well, we were skateboarding as kids. I was filming everything and we were doing editing. So how could I help people with video and help them communicate their message and tell their story?
It's funny you mentioned that. I had some friends like that I grew up with in my neighborhood that were skaters, and for that reason, I just never tried it. I mean, I did when I was much older and way too old, and it didn't last very long. But when I was like, elementary school, middle school, they were like so into skating, and they would They would take videos of themselves because that was like an industry, was like skater videos. Kids. I mean, probably people in their 20s too, but doing tricks, and then of course people hurting themselves. But they would watch these videos of like professional skaters that were put, and I'm talking legit like VHS videos, and then they would make their own. So that's funny. That just brought me back to that time frame. But
did you ever skateboard, Christian?
I tried when I moved down here. For some reason, at the age of, what was I at that time, like 24 or something, I decided I'm going to try skateboarding, and so I just bought like a cheap skateboard from like Walmart or something. I don't even remember where. And I think it took about 5 minutes before I fell and like scraped up my arm a little bit. And I was like, wait, if I were to fall and break my arm, how am I going to explain to my job that I broke my arm while trying to learn how to skateboard at 24? So needless to say, I did not try much, many more times after that, but I always enjoyed watching it.
I'll get you some pads. Don't worry.
We'll get
some knee pads, some elbow pads, some helmet. Yeah,
that's what I needed. Exactly. I skimped and only went with a skateboard. But it's interesting that something that you were like so into as in your childhood, it kind of stuck with you. Taking video, editing video, and then still wanting to do that, and now turning it into a business, which is pretty great.
And the crazy thing about that also is, like, while I was doing my job, my 9-to-5 job over the past decade, it's sort of like I forgot about what I love to do, and
right,
don't get me wrong. I loved what I did in IT and I was great at it, but you just sort of, I guess I'm in my mid 30s now, and I realize, like, I am here to do what I want to do. And why not? Like, this is the time in my life now where I can choose the lifestyle that I want. And it took a little bit of time for me to figure that out. But once I realized it through those retreats that I was going on, I'm like, I'm so clear right now on being able to make that positive impact on other people's lives through whatever means it is, through any business that I can help with.
And you're talking about skateboarding, so you're kind of and you're traveling, you're an outdoors kind of person. So the next business on your list makes sense, called Try the Wild. It is like a outdoor gear rental company. So tell me a little bit about that, how that came to be, and how it works.
Yeah, that's a long story, but I'll give you the short version. So a buddy of mine, his name is Kyle, one of my closest friends from high school. He lives in Las Vegas now, but he's also an officer in the military. He came to visit me in Charleston one day, and we were actually like, what do you want to do? And you want to go out, you want to go kayaking, you want to go for a run. Like, he's active like I am. We've always been active. We used to play racquetball a lot, and when we were in high school and all that, and even into college. And he came to visit, and I'm like, you want to go kayaking? I mean, we got a beautiful coast here. It's going to be a beautiful day. Like, it's going to be sunny, whatever. And he's like, okay, cool. So we go to do it, and I'm not going to say any company names, but I'm just going to say we went to go do kayak rentals, right? We went to go rent a kayak, and it wasn't a great experience, right? And so and he's like, dude, why is it such a pain in the butt? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it just sucks. Like, to do all this, we have to fill out this and do that. And I'm like, that might be a good idea for a business. So we sort of ran with it. And the last 2 years, we actually designed the platform. I designed the platform. And then he helped with like operations, getting it set up. I hired a developer to get it built. I actually went through several developers, to be honest, like software engineers. We got it built, and now it's amazing. Like, we're primarily in Charleston and Vegas right now in terms of the markets, but we're going to expand into other areas. But the idea is that it's sort of like the outdoor gear, the Airbnb of outdoor gear. So what you could do is, if you have a kayak, a surfboard, a paddleboard, like a stand-up paddleboard, or a bike, and we might expand to other gear as well. But you could take that. It's probably collecting dust in your garage, right? You buy a kayak, a really nice kayak, and it sits there. It's collecting dust. It's probably not doing anything. And especially on days like this, like it is beautiful out today. Go out there. You can rent kayaks on there if you want to rent them, but you could also host, your gear as well and make money. So like we have some folks that can make up to they can make up to $1,000 a month hosting their gear, and then people can book it on there as well. So they're sort of like their own little operation of a rental company, and it gives people the flexibility to be able to price it and post whatever they want and turn the listing on and off if they want to.
That's pretty.
So that's kind of
pretty cool if you own that gear, because then you can, whatever money you put towards purchasing a kayak or whatever, now you can make some of that back by essentially renting your stuff out, and then eventually just have some extra cash. So that's pretty cool. I mean, great for people, like you said, on vacation and stuff too, who might be able to get out cheaper. If they're like go-getters and they don't need like a guide or anything, they could just rent out gear and get out in the water or whatever activity it may be. So how's that so it's a launch in these two areas now. How has it been going?
Oh man, it's amazing. I mean, It's just like it's exactly aligned to what I love to do, which is again marketing and then being outdoors.
Yeah, exactly. Another business of things you like doing.
Are you noticing a theme here, Christian?
I am. And so I'm guessing this is the one I know the least about, is the Rich Life Academy. So I'm guessing it's following that trend. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I figured, I've been doing a lot of the podcasts, and I'm realizing like, I'm giving away all my secrets, right? Like I'm giving away all of my stuff, but there are opportunities for, paid coaching and also paid programs. So what I did was I actually started packaging up in terms of each of the areas that I call the Rich Life Trifecta, which is health, wealth, and happiness. So I figured like how in each one of these areas, how can I make an impact on people's lives? So I started creating programs around health, programs around wealth, and that, real estate investments, things like that, building businesses, and also happiness. Because I believe that all three of them, if you bring them all together, that to me is what I call my rich life, right? The rich life. And so, people say like, oh, how do I balance things? It's like, no, you're not balancing anything. You're counterbalancing. You're going to go all in on maybe your health, or maybe all in on your wealth, go deep on it. And then if something like falls out of whack, maybe your health is suffering, then counterbalance to your health and be like, okay, I need to work on my health a little bit, And so it's not a juggling act. I think a lot of people think like, oh, I'm juggling all these things. It's like, yeah, cool. You're juggling all these things, but like, are they the most effective, impactful things that you're doing today? Towards your core values, which those three happen to be mine. And so the Rich Life Company and the Rich Life Academy is the area of programs that I'm creating to allow people to have better energy, which is a program that I'm about to launch called the Energy Experiments. And obviously I have a little bit of energy. And so these are 12 experiments that drastically changed my life, that I'm sharing with people. Obviously it's a paid program, but I'm sharing with people to help them, because I think that the world is lacking energy, and with more energy, you have a better life. It's just, that's how I think about it. And, it's basically all of my philosophies for the Rich Life Trifecta on each of those core values in terms of programs so that people can pay for them.
Very cool. Yeah. In explaining another project of yours, you just mentioned you're thinking about launching another one. I don't know how you keep up the energy and have all your hands in all these different things. You're like a Renaissance man, just constantly doing all sorts of things. And I think it's pretty cool, the stuff that you're doing here in this community. And obviously it can grow from there. And I'm excited to see all this grow and what else you come up with, because it seems like everything you do, you're passionate, you're all in. It's not one of those you hear people who are like always have like new projects going on, and then one fizzles and then they're on to something else. Like these are things you're still working on. It's not like, oh, this is all over, I'm going to focus on something new now. It's all going, which is pretty great. And despite hearing all the things that I do, the crazy thing is I actually have very clear focus. Like I have such a clear, deep focus on my work that, in other words, I'm not doing 3 different businesses in the same day. Like if I'm creating a product, I'm all in, like you said, on that one product until it's done. Right. And then when it's done, then I move on to the next thing. It's sort of like, and I just heard this at a conference recently, it's sort of like the circus act where the guy that is holding the stick with the
he has a stick in his hand, and he's spinning these plates. You know that juggling app?
Yes, yeah, sure.
So he's spinning all these different plates, but the issue is like if you spin too many plates at once, they're all going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the idea is like get your plate spinning so fast that it's spinning. Then you can move on to the next plate.
It's done, or it's kind of at the point where it could just run on its own without you having to check in constantly. You know, you can check in and update or whatever, but yeah, you make sure it's good to go on its own or it's completed before you move on to the next task.
Exactly.
Well, yep. I think people listening, you know, all of these different things you have your hands in, you know, I'm sure it appeals to folks or just trying to learn more about having energy and finding that thing that makes them passionate. So out of all these things we've talked about, what is the best way for people to learn more or get in touch with you if they're interested in chatting with you? You know, run down as many as you need to or want to. Your socials, your websites.
Pigeon,
yes, whatever is available.
Signals. No, the best way to reach me is Instagram. So you can find me at YoRichieRich. It's YoRichieRich, and I'm on Instagram. I basically live on Instagram. I would encourage anybody to DM me and ask me questions. I'm glad to help. Like I said, I'm here to make humanity better. Like that's my mission, is to make humanity better and impact millions of lives. So that's what I'm here to do, and I want to do that for everybody that needs help. So reach out to me on Instagram. I answer all my direct messages, and ask me any questions.
Nice. And yeah, I'll be sure to include a link to your Instagram in the show notes and all that stuff. And then from there, you know, any of the other stuff we talked about, they can ask you directly for more. I'm sure if you Google the Rich Life podcast, you'll find, you know, all the platforms that's on and everything else. And there's lots of ways and lots of businesses to connect with you. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And again, I love your energy and your drive. I think it's inspiring, and I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate you.
And that is it. What did I tell you? Lots of energy, lots of positivity. He's a good dude, and I appreciate Rich coming on the podcast and also for having me on his. You can be sure to check that out after this one, see what else he's up to. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any other great interviews that we have coming up. You can also support the show in several ways. You can go to patreon.com/HolyCityCenter. There's also holycitycenter.com for all your Charleston news and all that good stuff. But add a little /shop to the end of that web address. You can find some merchandise. I haven't officially announced this, well, probably by the time it comes out, but let's do this for the month of June. I'll put details on my socials, but I will donate a portion of the proceeds from any merch that is sold to We Are Family here in Charleston in honor of Pride Month. I'll talk about that more in the next episode, but look for details. I'll figure out the percentage or the dollar amount that we'll donate with each one. So you can help me and the show out while also helping out a good local organization here, especially one helping LGBTQ plus folks, especially at this time right now in our country as they are under attack. Let's do that. Sounds good. Good. I'm glad we're all on board. Buy lots of merch so we can help them out. Big thank you to all of you, as I mentioned, but also Lindsay Marie Collins for producing the show with LMC Sound System and FMB Radio, her podcast. Thank you to Tyler Boone for providing the music in each and every episode. And I'm excited to have you all back next Monday. We'll have another episode for you. It's going to be a good one. And until then, good night and good luck.